After finding out that my mom lied to me my whole life about my allergies, I cut off contact with her. Perhaps against my better judgment, I decided that I would reopen the line of communication with my mother. I decided that I wanted to have a relationship with her, but I also wanted her to see why what she did was so incredibly wrong. I told her I was willing to talk if A, she did not say anything until I had my say, B, didn't gaslight me into thinking what she was doing was right, and C, truly considered my perspective. She agreed instantly. We set up a video chat at that point and I started explaining my points. What if I had really accidentally taken one of those foods I was supposed to be allergic to, which is absurdly irresponsible of her? Did she ever stop to consider that I, sitting there at another kid's birthday party chewing down on an effing apple while the other kids ate cake, might just make me feel out of place? This was inconsiderate. How could she have the nerve to suggest that my hard work and having a goddamn tennis racket practically glued to my hand since I was 4 wasn't the reason why I'm such a great athlete, but rather it was because I didn't eat gluten? How could she have lied not only to me, but to our family as well? This was dishonest. Why didn't she just talk to me instead of raising me on a lie? This was underhanded. By the end of my rehearsed talk, my mother was straight up ugly crying. This was not exactly what I expected, but she apologized and said that she had been terrible. It was a huge leap from her previous response. She told me everything I said was right and asked if I would listen to her reason why she did so. Before I was born, my mother had a much older brother. I knew about him, but never heard specifics on what happened to him. Apparently, he basically ate himself to death. He was so obese and food addicted that he was beyond help. He passed away when my mother was pregnant with me. They were close and it had a huge effect on her. She rationalized that lying would be better for me. When I brought up the fact that she didn't lie once, but for my entire life, she acknowledged that she truly had no excuse. This did not give me complete closure, but at least I got it. I'm talking to my parents again. My father also apologized, although he's tried to maintain that what he did was more of an accomplice who tried to talk her out of it. However, that's another fight for another day. I am now 8 weeks pregnant with my third child. Nearly 2 weeks ago, my sister went into labor at 30 weeks and her little boy unfortunately didn't make it. It was understandably really traumatic and she has been inconsolable. It was made worse by the fact that it took her 4 years to conceive. I only found out that I was pregnant at 6 weeks and 3 days, a couple days after my sister miscarried. I figured it was best not to tell her as it was too soon and it would put salt in her already gaping wound. However, my family knows that we were trying. My morning sickness was starting to act up in a couple days leading up to the funeral, but I never considered canceling as I needed to support my sister at this time. The service went according to plan, but problems started happening at the wake, which compromised the entirety of both my sister and my brother-in-law's families and some friends at my brother-in-law's parents' house. My excuse for not drinking was easy because I don't really drink anyway, but it got difficult when my nausea hit. I excused myself to the bathroom where I promptly threw up. My brother's wife, my sister-in-law, who was one of my best friends, followed me up. She straight up said, "You're pregnant, aren't you?" I responded, "Yes, but don't tell anyone. Today is about making my sis and brother-in-law feel comfortable." My sister-in-law congratulated me and said that she understood. Unbeknownst to me, my brother-in-law's teenage sister was in her bedroom next to the bathroom instead of with the family and proceeded to spread news around the wake before I managed to get downstairs. My sister confronted me crying and asked if it was true. I said yes, but I didn't mean for her to find out like this. She screamed that I could conceive easier than an effing rabbit and I was flaunting my pregnancy while she suffered. I admit that I can get pregnant easily and something that I know has caused a bit of pain as my other kids are 2 and 9 months old. It ended with her retreating to the bedroom and just screaming. It was awful. Everyone thinks that I'm an a-hole except my husband and sister-in-law. My brother-in-law is refusing to look at me in the eye even after I explain the situation. He says that I should have known his sister was in her room. My mom said I could have easily told my sister-in-law that I caught a bug from one of my daughters, but I believe my brother-in-law's sister, who has a habit for attention seeking, would have spread the rumors anyway. And it was a private conversation. My brother is fighting with my sister-in-law and believes that she shouldn't have asked. Am I wrong for admitting that I was pregnant? I took my daughter, who's 14, to urgent care for a double ear infection yesterday. They took her weight and she is about 15 to 20 pounds overweight for her height and age. I was shocked by this and I asked her if she exercises at my ex-wife's house. She said that since she takes violin lessons 4 times per week and tutors the other 2 days, she gets home at 5:30 to 6 every night, has dinner, then takes a shower and does her homework. So exercising is difficult for her to achieve. She said she walks the dog for 45 minutes every morning and every evening. I told her that we're going to take a walk every night while she's at my house and that her current weight needs to come down. I told her that I didn't want to make her feel awkward about it and that she could talk to me. She nodded and just turned away. Today, I went to the store and bought Weight Watchers frozen stir-fry bowls and told her that if she was going to eat dinner tonight, she could have one of those. She looked at them and asked me, "Is 180 calories enough for dinner?" I replied yes, and if she was still hungry, she could have a yogurt. She then went to her room and hasn't spoken to me since. My ex-wife texted me and said my daughter called her crying and she called me harsh and asked for what I did. I proposed that she do a sport and she said that she doesn't have time because of orchestra. I told her that maybe orchestra was something that she could come back to after doing a sport and she didn't say anything, only stared at me and then went on her phone and started typing something seemingly very angrily. I don't know what to do. Am I wrong for trying to get her to be healthy? My husband and I entered our relationship monogamous and honestly everything seemed amazing. We have a couple hobbies that we do together and friends that we hang out with and everything's been fine. My husband got a new job 2 years ago and meets lots of people all the time. I understand we still get crushes on people, but we love each other and I expect us to never act on that. One day he came to me asking for an open relationship and he was obviously researching it. He framed it by saying how good it would be for us and told me about all the positives. I was so secure in our relationship and figured, you know what, why not, even though I didn't really want it. I should have stuck up for myself more, but honestly, maybe this was meant to happen. He must have had someone in mind because right away he already had 2 women lined up and was already seeing them. It's just crazy. We work full time, so we have our evenings to spend time together and do our hobbies together, but suddenly he's out on dates. A lot. It's really hurt me and I tried talking to him about it, but he was kind of manipulative and I see it now. After this, I finally started meeting other people online and chatting. I met one man who was very, very handsome and a really great guy and decided to meet up. I've never felt these feelings before. My husband and I kind of had a slow burn that got better with time, but this is just something completely different. We connect on a totally different level. It's better in the bedroom, so much passion, enthusiasm, and exploring. The conversations are better. He takes an interest in what I have to say and I love hearing about what he has to say. And honestly, we seem like a better fit. I've even opened up and told him about this open relationship and I didn't really want it and all the things that go with it. That's when he confessed that he's been waiting to see if it was possible for us to be monogamous. I'm planning on leaving my husband. I'm seeing a lot of things now that I never saw before now that I've been with this new man for about 5 months. My husband has been coming home more often and I think things are falling apart with one of his women, possibly the other as well. I honestly don't even ask about it anymore, which I think he is kind of sensed. He whines and moans that I'm going out too often, but I just kind of tell him the same thing he told me and do it anyway. He said he wants to talk about going back to normal. I don't know what to say to him. I want to be kind, but I also want to let him know that he destroyed what we had and what we could have had. I really don't want to do therapy or try to save this relationship. It feels over to me. What should I do and how should I go about it? My husband and I have been married for 5 years. I'm 26 and he's 27. My husband's family are your typical snotty Catholic mega religious people. My husband's not religious in the slightest, but still remains respectful of their beliefs and has always lived a second life in private. I joined a dating app with the sole purpose of finding us another couple or even a unicorn. This was my husband's idea. Usually we go to swinger parties where we feel safe and not judged. I've never used a dating app, so I posted your typical what I do for work, what music, movies I like, etc. I identify as bisexual, so myself and my husband have shared a few women and never had an issue. While on the app, I guess some girl who knows my husband and his family saw me. They confronted me in front of everyone and accused me of cheating. His aunt said horrible things about me. I tried to tell him that he knew and he didn't back me up or say anything. The argument got heated more and that's when I exposed us. I told his family everything, how we've shared other women, slept with other couples, and even that they've babysat while we did this. I believe that was the part where I was an asshole. My husband felt like I disrespected his family for saying that, even though he didn't stick up for me while they called me a whore among other things. Now his innocent, holy reputation is ruined and he says because of me he can't show his face to his family. Am I the asshole? Storytime about the most embarrassing moment working as a TSA agent. So I work for the TSA and have for a few years now. It's a good job overall. I'm underpaid, but the benefits are nice and I get overtime when I want it. Over a year ago, during the week leading up to Christmas, we had some really bad weather that delayed all the flights. I volunteered to stay late so that my coworkers could go home to their families. Most of the work was done anyway, so it was mostly just standing around waiting for the odd latecomer. I was working the AIT, the space tube thingy, when 3 passengers came up together, a middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, and a teenage boy. Mom goes through, all is fine. Dad goes through, all is fine. Kid comes up, I get a good look at him. Hoodie, sweatpants, shortish hair, smooth face. I figure he's about 13, maybe 14. I hit the button, direct him to wait with me for a moment, and then gesture to the screen, which lit up his chest area. I tell him that I have to pat the area down. He's a little nervous. I figure that's because he's so young. This is probably his first time getting a pat down, but he says okay and I start the pat down. I do the left side of the chest and feel some moob, which catches me off guard because he didn't look chubby at all. I move to the right side of the chest, read what's on the hoodie, and it all clicks at once. The hoodie has the name of a local college on it. This is an adult, not a child. He's not wearing sweatpants. She is wearing yoga pants. She doesn't even know the couple that just came through. I look at her face, which is bright red, my hand is still on her boob, and I pull it back like I just got bit by a snake. I immediately call for my supervisor, who comes over and asks what's wrong, and I explain the situation to her. That's when my supervisor covers her mouth in what I believe is utter shock. After groping this woman that I thought was a boy, I call my supervisor over. I tell her the situation and she covers her mouth. At first, I thought she was absolutely mortified, but then I realized she's trying not to laugh. She takes a minute to pull herself together, tells me to go take a break, and finishes screening the passenger herself. Once that was done, I apologize to the passenger. She tells me it's fine, that it wasn't the first time she was mistaken for a boy, and she probably should have said something before I started touching her. I leave her alone and go talk to my supervisor to figure out how exactly fired I am. She tells me to calm down, that it was just an honest mistake, and that she has my back if the passenger files an official complaint, but that probably won't happen and I shouldn't be worried. That reassured me a little, but I still groped a woman and ruin Christmas, so I feel like an absolute monster. I swallow my shame and finish my shift, then I go to the airport proper to find some food because I just finished a 12-hour shift and there's no way I have energy to cook dinner. I saw my hapless victim sitting at her gate waiting for her flight. I went up to her to apologize again and saw that the flight had been delayed until morning. It was about 11 at night at this point. I apologize again, she says it's fine, and I ask her if she's planning to stay the whole night. She said she has to because all the hotels in the area are booked. I tell her that I'm getting some dinner and I offer to get her some food as well. After all, I already got to second base. I think it's only fair that I buy her dinner. She agrees and we go to one of the restaurants that's open late, get some food, and start eating. She said she gets mistaken for a boy a lot and it's not a big deal. We ended up talking for a few hours before I finally told her that I had to get home and apologize again for the accidental molestation. She said that all is forgiven if I promise to take her on a real date when she gets back. I agreed. She gave me her number and I immediately started texting her when I got home. We kept talking until her flight finally left. When she got back, I picked her up at the airport and a few days later took her on a real date that I promised her. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. My 39-year-old husband is the breadwinner in our family. He's a pilot who's always working while I'm a stay-at-home mom taking care of our home and our 3 kids. Lately, we've been having a few arguments with him complaining about me not taking care of myself and my looks and always being busy with chores and whatnot. Last night, we got invited to my parents' house. Once we sat down for dinner, my sister and my mom started talking about the preparations for my sister's wedding. My sister talked about her hair, makeup, and dress. My husband kept giving me looks and raising his eyebrows whenever the words haircut or makeup or new dress got brought up. He decided to pitch in the conversation and started openly criticizing my current look and how unladylike I've become recently, especially after our 3rd child. He went on commenting about how much he'd like me to change my hair color, get my nails done, or buy a new nice dress to wear like the other wives do for once. I was stunned, mouth wide open, and so were my parents. My brother-in-law was laughing secretly, and my sister was looking at me head to toe in the poor sister type of way. My husband didn't stop at that and ranted about how I should start taking care of us and be more energetic, positive, outgoing, sexy, and so on and so on. Then he looked at me and asked me why I've become so unladylike all of a sudden. He kept looking at me in a whatever happened to you, what changed type of way. I was furious and loudly said, behind every unladylike, miserable woman, there's a trashy, negative, a-hole man. I pointed out what changed, and that is him not pulling enough weight in childcare, delaying, making excuses, and putting house chores upon me constantly while he posts on Facebook about what amazing work he does to provide for us. I cook, clean, wash, do laundry, get up with the baby, and feed and change and bath and so on. He reminded me that I'm a stay-at-home parent and he's the moneymaker. I pointed out that there are a lot of dads who are moneymakers and still do their part as partners and parents. He was stunned, dumbfounded as everyone was looking at him in an awkward, embarrassing way. He got quiet the rest of the visit, just looking down and avoiding eye contact with everyone in the room. He blew up in the car, asking what the hell possessed me to go off on him like that in front of his in-laws who now have a very false, very misleading impression of him. He said no matter what happens, I should never share our private issues with family. I reminded him of who brought it up first, and he called me petty for making a scene to get back at him for only giving some innocent advice. I'm not neglecting myself. I do my hair at home, I do activities and wear eye makeup, but just not full makeup. However, it seems like he wants me to do more. He's sulking right now. Did I go too far? Storytime about how I accidentally got sexual with my dentist twice. I'm a 32-year-old woman who can never go back to my new dentist after 2 visits because I'm an idiot. My dentist is a very nice and professional man. Our first appointment was going pretty smoothly until he made an innocuous remark about us being strangers. My immediate reply was, "Oh, you're not a stranger. You've been inside my mouth for 20 minutes. I did not intend to make a sexual joke. His face immediately turned red and he was clearly embarrassed, but he continued on like a true professional, and we were both probably relieved when the appointment was over. I had my second dentist appointment today. I actually mentally prepared myself to be a model patient who didn't say anything weird, thank you very much. He had been working in my mouth for about 5 minutes when he started to seem really uncomfortable or something. His face was red and he was breathing a little heavier. I was a bit concerned and also confused. Like, how could I have embarrassed him this time? I had hardly spoken. So he keeps working in there, and then I realized what the hell is happening. My dentist was wearing grape-flavored gloves. I had been absent-mindedly licking his fingers the whole time. Needless to say, I'm never going back. Storytime about the time I clogged my new boyfriend's toilet. This all started when I had the intense urge to use the bathroom while he and I were hanging out. We were cuddling and watching television in his room when I accepted the fact that I would have to poop. Here and now. I let him know I'd be back in a minute, walked to the bathroom, and locked the door. Let me just tell you, this thing was huge. It didn't feel like it was, but when I turned around to flush, I had a moment of worry. Worry that it wouldn't go down the drain. I figured I would take the leap of faith and flush. It started off well. It sounded like any normal toilet flush should, and then shit hit the fan. Or shall I say, shit came to a screeching halt. Everything came to a stop. The poop, the toilet paper, the water, the world. Panic set in. I quickly looked around for a toilet plunger. This particular bathroom did not have one. More panic. I tried flushing again once everything had settled and the water had receded a bit. The same thing happened, but the water rose to the rim of the toilet. More panic. Panic, panic, panic. I decided I had to get this blockage out. I couldn't tell my boyfriend. I was too nervous for us to break the intimate barrier, so I decided to do what any panicked person would do. Anything I could. It started with me lightly kicking the bowl, praying that the tiny vibrations would be enough to shake any problem loose and send it spiraling down the drain. Nothing happened. I could feel my heart pounding. With this not working, I tried the next best thing. I put my arm in the bowl to try and see if I could push some of the toilet paper aside and see if I could see the problem. The only thing this accomplished was covering my arm past my elbow in dirty water. I realized there was one other thing I could try. He and I had spent the night with each other last night and my hairbrush was still sitting on the sink. I looked at it, looked at the handle, and looked at the toilet. I bent over the toilet and shoved the hairbrush down into the bowl, pushing it down until it hit the drain where I started moving it around. I figured this was the last straw and I didn't want to have to put anything else in the bowl, so I tried as hard as I could to push away any blockage. After about 5 minutes, I removed the brush and threw it in the trash after a quick rinse. I scrubbed my hands over and over in the sink. Nothing was enough to remove the thought of what I had just tried. Never did I think I would find myself in this situation, yet here I was. This seemed to help a bit as the water went down, but not enough for me to comfortably flush. I didn't have my phone with me, but I swear I had been in this bathroom for at least 30 minutes, pacing, panicking, and pushing poop around. It was at this point that I accepted it. I would try to flush.